What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Like always, like and subscribe, leave a comment down below, hit the notification bell, all that stuff. Today I want to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine Rising Sun by S.D. Perry. Right off the bat, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. It wasn't... S.D. Perry's a phenomenal writer, especially within the Star Trek, universe and the novels that I've read of her so far. She's the author that wrote the first 2 Star Trek books I ever read, which were freaking amazing. They were just, off the rails nuts. She wrote Time Cop, the other book by her I read. So now my 4th book by her. And it was okay. It just wasn't nothing, it wasn't nothing to write home about. The book was, first off, this book should have came directly after the Mission Gamma 4 book in the Litverse list. So I'm not understanding why they have the order the way they do. This would have been much better read coming off of Mission Gamma Part 4. But, it wasn't. It was, I think this was like, I don't even know what book this is now that I'm on in the Litverse list. 10, 11, 12, 13, somewhere around there. But the book was okay. You know what I mean? It wasn't nothing, you're following Jake Sisko. He's, you leave off way back in the Avatar books. He travels to, maybe it was the first Mission Gamma book. I don't remember now. But he's going through the wormhole. He's looking for his dad, who, oh, and don't mind me, I'm all filthy. I literally got off work and wanted to finish this book. So, just so you know, I'm looking at myself in the camera like, holy crap, I'm dirty. But I haven't showered yet. I wanted to finish the book because, like I said, I love S.D. Perry's writing. And the writing was phenomenal in the book. So, 8 out of 10. And it's not a smitey 8 out of 10. It's a solid 8 out of 10. Just because it was kind of boring. You know what I mean? The book was kind of boring. And, but I've heard that the second one in the duology, Unity, is super insanely good. So we shall see. I'm reading it next. But anyways, Jake Sisko traveled through the wormhole to find his father, Ben Sisko, who you read about in those earlier books in the Litverse list, that he basically became one with the prophets or something like that. He's with them now. And so Jake goes to find him, but ends up his ship basically fails on all levels. And he's saved by basically some smugglers save him, and he befriends them, and that's where the adventure part of the book kind of comes in. He goes on like they call it retrieving stuff, and he goes on some retrieval missions with them, and that's fine and dandy. So it was a good time, the little adventuring in there. And then he's like keeping a diary the whole time, talking about what he's thinking and what he's going through, and he's befriending these people, and he's he decides they're about to get somewhere after it's been months. They're getting to a location where they can drop him off and he can finally go back to where he belongs. But as foretold by the prophets in those earlier books, everything is happening for a reason and leading everything to the same conclusion, which we're still traveling that path right now in these the Deep Space Nine segment of the Litverse books. And so they get to this place called EE, basically E, you know what I mean? And he meets a Tosk, and the Tosk, his whole meaning of life, this Tosk thing, is to be hunted and killed, which is insane. And he meets a lady named Wex, she's a Trillian. And so they end up finding another character that's mentioned way in the earlier Litverse looks, Kai Opaka. She's there on E. She escaped some moon she was trapped on, and all this was foretold, and so they know it. So, that's basically the whole premise of the book right there. There's a whole lot of adventuring that goes on with this crew that Jake joins, and does the retrieving stuff with, and S.D. Perry does a good job, but there wasn't too much going on in this book. So we'll see how the counterpart to it, pops off. But I did like the ending. It definitely, came to in the end, and it finally basically left off where Mission Gamma 4 leaves off. So I'm interested to see where those 2 books come together in this list. I'm hoping it's Unity, but I don't know. I haven't even read the back. I think it is. This one is going to leave off where those 2 left off, and so I'm interested to see what happens. And I love Star Trek, so the book was not a letdown. It was a good book. It was like watching a an okay episode, one that kept your attention, but it wasn't nothing you're gonna, write home about. And if you were rewatching the series or something, you might skip it or something. But otherwise, if you're reading the Litverse list, don't skip the book. It's a great Jake Sisko. He's featured. It's a great book for a lot of his character development and everything. So I thought all that was really good. So, but yeah, like I said, my next book coming up is Unity, the duology, the second part to Rising Sun. So I'm excited to get to it. I'll probably start it a little bit tonight and hopefully finish it within a day or two. Star Trek books by S.D. Perry are supremely easy to read. She's a great writer, phenomenal writing, flows well, smooth as butter. So I'm excited to get to that and see what happens in this one. And I'm also excited to just finally, my wife and I are like less than 2 seasons away and some of the TNG movies from getting to Deep Space Nine, the show. So after reading all these books with these characters, it's going to be a great time to, see them on the screen and stuff. And I've read the first Deep Space Nine book with Ben Sisko, and I just love him as a captain in that book. And I think I have the second Deep Space Nine #2 book in my Book Trek TBR for the summer, I think. Yeah, because it's by Peter David. So he's another great Star Trek author. So S.D. Perry, I have one of her other Star Trek books in my Book Trek TBR as well. And I think in October I'm going to read 3 or 4, maybe all of her Resident Evil media tie-ins that she did. I love her. She's one of my favorite authors. So, wrong book. So don't skip this one. If you want the Litverse list, let me know, and I'll pin it in the comments down below. If you don't, I just stopped pinning them. You could go back to the older Litverse videos and find it. But if you want to follow this Litverse list, these books are relatively easy to find on the Litverse list. So, I highly recommend, especially if you don't know anything about Star Trek. It's the perfect place to start to get into Star Trek as a whole, because I knew nothing. I knew nothing about Star Trek, and I started with the Avatar books, and it's all went from there. I love Star Trek now. I love it. It's my obsession. I love reading the books, especially. It's just great. But that's the video today, guys. Like and subscribe, leave a comment down below. Later.